Hello, I'm Robert, and this time it's about this record temperature in Antarctica. And that doesn't look, that doesn't look much like Antarctica perhaps, but it's way up nearly at Argentina on the western Antarctica, big peninsula. It's the furthest north part of the continent. So it's quite a bit warmer there compared with the absolutely freezing. The centre of Arctica, the central plateau, is absolutely freezing. It never gets above zero, even in summer. But this is much warmer. And so it's not too surprising that occasionally it gets close to 20 degrees centigrade, and that's what happened. And this is the only two places in Antarctica, apparently, where civilians live permanently. So it's like a little settlement. They're Argentinian settlements. Settlers living in Antarctica, and so they and the Washington Post has a couple of comments by a glaciologist and a climate researcher, and both say there isn't any much of a surprise to this. This record doesn't come as much surprise as a glaciologist and climate researcher. Overall, this record looks to be a one-time extreme event that doesn't tell us anything about Antarctic climate change. And then I found that, where is it now? On AccuWeather, then a senior meteorologist said that, first of all, there were regional northwest winds influencing the peninsula and made it a bit warmer. And then there's extremely localised southwest winds. They came down off a mountain. And as they came down, these very local winds, then they caused the air to warm and compress. And they flowed to the mountains to the south of the base. And so there's very, very local warming. Meanwhile, the temperature at Vostok was minus 50. That's up in the plateau. That's very cold. So now I'm going to look at the other maximum temperatures around Antarctica. So this is the one that we just had. So a 90.8. And its previous was 18.3 in 2015. So it's just aged up a little bit since then. The same temperature, 9.8, was also measured in Signy Research Station, which is a little bit an island, and it's the entire region of Antarctica rather than just the continent. That was in 1982, at that highest temperature then. And that has basically stayed the record for the entire Antarctic region until this one. Then if you go and look at the Antarctic plateau, the very highest temperature is minus 7 degrees. So it's bitterly cold up on the Antarctic plateau. And that's the highest temperature ever in 1989. And so that's not getting any warmer. Antarctica is, but these are just spot temperatures, and they made very clear in the report. You can't actually say what's the coldest or warmest temperatures on the ground here, because there are only a few stations here and there, and everywhere else you've just got satellite, you don't have much ground data. The coldest it's ever been in Antarctica is minus 89.2 degrees, and that was Vostok Station again in 1983, but not apart from those other dates. And that's so cold that the dry ice is at that temperature. That's near as cold as it gets to Mars, as cold as in the equatorial regions. So anyway, there's nothing to worry about this. It's absolutely as expected. I mean, except the whole thing is part of climate change, but it's just another indicator. It's not even an indicator. Given this alone, you wouldn't be able to deduce climate change, because the weather changes all the time anyway, and you get little hot spots. And who's to say whether this would have happened anyway? That this wind blowing down a mountain and warming it up, and maybe there's a little bit of an edge on it from climate change. The thing is, Antarctica isn't warming up nearly as much as the Arctic. So the Arctic with that ocean there, and that warms up a lot. Antarctica, because it's got it's very easy to transport into the Arctic, but Antarctica has a big kind of trade wind that protects it, that blows round and round and round the continent all the time, and this tends to stop warm air from coming from the equator into the Antarctica. And you also have an anti-greenhouse effect over Antarctica, where it's so cold in Antarctica that the atmosphere high up is for most of the year it's actually warmer than it is at ground level, and very high, and this has the effect of cooling the surface down. So if it was cold, then it would be warming the surface up. Just like if you've got a thermos flask and your tea is being kept warm, then it's cold on the outside, sort of roughly similar. But if it's warmer than the surface, then it's actually helping to cool the Earth down. It's radiating more heat than the surface is into outer space. So Antarctica is a slight anti-greenhouse. It's also got these protecting circular winds, and that's why Antarctica doesn't actually heat up particularly so much as the Arctic does. And it's heating up slightly, some parts of it even maybe slightly cooler, just off, especially a bit offshore. So you're more likely to get records being broken so we get records broken all the time in Northern Europe, for instance, and in Canada. This is the first time since 2015 that the Antarctic record has been broken. It's probably just a local effect. So you can see from this that it's really not a big story at all. It's just they were a little bit short of news really to run this as a story. It's not really a story at all, but it has been scaring some people. So what they're scared about is climate change, is rising sea level, of course. So let's just quickly look at that. So they worry that this is going to lead to a huge rapid rise for sea level. It's not going to. There's lots of modelling to be done on that. There's again, there's a recent story about warm water beneath a glacier, a Thwaite Glacier in western Antarctica. That warm water was expected. The news story just didn't make that clear at all. But they knew this glacier was melting anyway, and they were going there to try and find out how and why. And they knew that there's warmer water there, but they had never managed to measure it in that particular place on the grounding line, where it's just above the rocks, which is coming off the rocks at the edge and going into open sea. And so they had this submersible right down there, and it looked a very difficult place to measure. And from this, it's going to help them build their models to help to better predict how Thwaite Glacier is going to respond as the world warms up. But they didn't. It was far too soon to deduce anything at all from the measurements. Another team from this Thwaite Glacier thing. So if you've been scared of this story, it's another story that was around recently. I haven't got around to writing up a debunk about it. But this, the water was somewhat warmer than perhaps expected, but they were expected to be warm. And what it wasn't doing wasn't moving as fast as expected. And it's a combination of the two. Warm water moving past very fast helps to carry away a lot more, melt more of the ice. And this was quite slow moving, although warm. And so another researcher commented on that, saying that it doesn't seem like it's actually, that means it's actually melting somewhat less than expected rather than more, if anything. So you do get these stories, very clickbait. There's so many of these clickbait stories where they're not usually based on science. They're just journalists speculating based on a few numbers, and you can't deduce anything from these things. Every now and again, we get the IPCC reports, and these give a big overview of the entire subject. And until we get the next one in 2022, then for the ocean sea level rise, then the best one is the report from 2019 Ocean and Cryosphere. And the 1.5 degree path, you see, we could have sea level rise of 0.6 meters or so, getting on for 0.7 with 2.4 degrees sea path. We're at 3 degrees. Some say we're down to about 2.8 degrees C if we can follow the pledges that we're committed to. Like, for instance, the UK, we've committed to zero emissions by 2050. We haven't yet explained how exactly, although there are ways of doing it. They did it based on a report that said we can do it, but they've still got to work out how. So if you take us a pledge, meaning we are going to hit zero emissions in 2050, then you can then that's not included in these yet anyway, I don't think. But that's including all the pledges, not just the policies. Then it could be below 3, it could be 2.8 degrees C. And so I'd be very surprised if we don't at least get down to this part, given that we've got 121 countries are going to be pledging to carbon zero, in COP26. They've already said they will, and another 114 are going to increase their pledges. And with that background, admittedly, a lot of them will be small countries, and they haven't actually given a list of which countries they'll be. But the UK is going to be there, and the EU is going to be there, pledging to zero emissions by 2050. And the EU is already putting quite a lot of actual policy in place. I expect to have quite a lot of legal framework in place by then. And hopefully the UK will too. So California is as well, but it doesn't count as a separate country, but it's got strong policies for zero emissions by 2050. So so these parts are, if anything, this one is rather higher than we can expect, and this is very unlikely. This goes up to 1.1 meters, so that's the maximum. Now, so each time they've refined it a little bit. This is much narrower than it was in 2018. It's a little bit wider. That was a little bit wider. Which one did they look at? I think they did 3C1. Anyway, they were both wider in 2018. But the 1.5 is a 2 degrees C, yes, and it's not there really. Anyway, yes, of course they did. Anyway, so we can we don't need to worry that the sea level rise is going to be absolutely huge, but even 60 centimeters by 2100 is still a significant amount, and there are quite a few cities where adding an extra half meter or more it's not likely we go up there. That's very unlikely. That's pretty much ruled out. But this is a little bit more is possible. So and these are just likely. It could be go over that, of course, but this is the most likely range. Could go a little bit over. Anyway, so but the cities are well. If you've got a developed city, apart from Miami, which is the most vulnerable because it's on limestone, and they, in the very worst case for something like this, then some of the very low-lying houses in Miami, then they mightn't be able to keep the sea out, because it's limestone and the sea just seeps through the limestone into the city, and it's got quite a small tidal range, and I think half a meter to the small tidal range, and it still will be mainly spring tides and storm surges. But so Miami is the most difficult to protect, but nearly everyone else is living on clay, or other rocks that are impervious to water, like London is. Limestone is quite rare along the seashore for cities to build on for some reason. So but most people living in cities will be fine so long as your city is prepared to build your defences up a bit as the sea rises. Even if you're a low-lying city with sea defences, Netherlands will be fine. They've got lots of plans, and one way or another, it's more a matter of what the expense will be as to rather than whether they do it. They certainly will. And Bangladesh is doing pretty well. They've got quite good plans. I mean, they could certainly do with more help from outside, but they're putting a lot of work into protecting themselves against flooding and dealing with sea level rise. And one of the worst impacted, they already are impacted, already are people migrating because of the sea level rise. They are also putting a lot of work into it with the help of the Dutch. Anyway, that's enough. I'll upload this. I'm going to do a short one. And if you want to hear, do subscribe to my channel, and do if you're interested to join our group, Facebook, Doomsday Debunked on Facebook, then we welcome anyone who's. So I think I'll just clarify a little bit what we do, and maybe do a separate video about that to help people be a bit more in tune about what it is. But do read the rules at the top of the group to understand what we're doing. We are not there to just debunk random scary stories that you find on the internet unless you yourself are scared and need help. And we are not there to just go around the internet and say, oh, here's this weird, strange story, and I bet this will scare people. Here you are. This is exactly what you want. That's not what we're about. We are there as a service to help the people who are scared and to find out the truth behind the stories that scare them We don't do any sugarcoating, we just look at the stories as they are as best we can. If there is something real there, and then we try and explain that, as I'm doing here, and I'm explaining what the true situation is in Antarctica. We don't know what effect of all this modelling will be, but it's likely to be a refinement of this rather than some big change in it. And the sea is rising at a few millimetres a year, a few centimetres per decade at the moment. So hopefully that gives you a better idea of what's going on. And when they talk about accelerating, they don't mean that it's going to rise a metre in a year or anything like that, or even tens of centimetres in a year or something like that. They're just talking about somewhat more millimetres a year and somewhat more centimetres per decade if it were to increase. For instance, this that's 60 centimetres by 2100, and that's in about that's in about a century. So, which would be 6 millimetres a year, and we're currently going 1.6 millimetre. Let's check that works. 6 millimetres, that would be 6 centimetres a decade, which would be 60 centimetres in a century, and we're actually going about 4 millimetres a year at the moment. So we're more down here somewhere. Well, about the middle. We're about the middle at the moment. You can see it sort of going around the middle, but it could be less. It could be more than that, depending if it accelerates a bit, or it could even apparently slow down a bit. That's the 2000 and I think 3.9. I'd have to look up the figure. Don't go by that figure. I'm just off the top of my head. Yeah. So anyway, So anyway, I hope this was helpful, and see you in the group. I'm going to talk a little bit about why our group works, how our group works in the next video.